In a forgotten corner of the city, a boy named Jacob sat alone on the steps of his crumbling apartment building. His world was gray, just like the sky above him. With a battered notebook on his lap, he sketched strange gadgets, ideas that made sense only to him. Around him, life moved on, indifferent. He felt like an outcast in a place that had no room for dreamers. But somewhere deep inside, a spark refused to fade. One evening, Jacob wandered into the city's vibrant street market. The air buzzed with voices, the smell of food, and the soft glow of string lights overhead. His eyes caught something extraordinary, a vendor demonstrating small, handmade gadgets. As gears turned and mechanisms clicked, Jacob felt something awaken within him. For the first time, he saw the bridge between his dreams and reality. He walked away that night with more than inspiration. He had a vision. Jacob turned his tiny garage into a workshop. It wasn't much, just a desk, a lamp, and a collection of junkyard parts. But to Jacob, it was a world of possibility. Late into the night, while the world slept, he tinkered and experimented. The hum of his tools echoed his determination. He failed again and again, but every failure taught him something new. He wasn't just building gadgets. He was building himself. After weeks of hard work, Jacob finally had a prototype he was proud of. He took it to a local business, hoping they'd see what he saw. But the owner barely looked at it. "You're too young," they said dismissively. The word stung. Walking out of that office, Jacob felt the weight of rejection pressing down on him. For a moment, he wondered if the world was right. Maybe he didn't belong. But that spark, it still burned. Back in his small room, Jacob sat in the quiet glow of his laptop. He scrolled through stories of others who had failed before finding success. He took notes, learned, and improved his designs. Alone in the silence, he made a promise to himself. He wouldn't stop. This was no longer just about proving others wrong. It was about proving himself right. Months later, Jacob stood in a small cafe, handing over a box of his finished gadgets. A delivery worker tested one and smiled. It worked. It was practical. It was good. Jacob felt something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. The cafe's warm light felt like a sunrise on his journey. It wasn't a huge victory, but it was his first step forward. The garage wasn't enough anymore. Jacob upgraded to a proper workspace, filled with tools and equipment. Orders began coming in steadily through his website. His days were long, but each new customer felt like validation. The boy who once sketched alone in the dark was now an entrepreneur building something real. His dream was no longer a fantasy, it was a business. Years of hard work led Jacob to this moment, standing in front of a warehouse bearing his company's logo. Workers loaded boxes of his gadgets onto trucks, ready to ship worldwide. He wasn't just making products, he was solving problems, creating jobs, and making a difference. Looking at the bustling scene, Jacob felt gratitude, not just for his success, but for the struggles that had shaped him. Jacob stood on stage in a packed conference hall, sharing his story. Behind him, a screen showed images of his journey. The lonely boy with a notebook, the tiny garage, the first cafe order, and now his thriving business. "You don't have to be extraordinary to start," he told the crowd. "You just have to start." The applause wasn't just for his success, it was for the hope he inspired. On the same steps where his journey began, Jacob sat again. But this time, he wasn't alone. A group of curious kids surrounded him, flipping through his old sketches. The neighborhood looked brighter now, with fresh paint and thriving gardens. The spark that had carried Jacob through his darkest days now lived in the eyes of the children around him. His story wasn't just his anymore. It was a legacy, proof that even the lost can find their way.